Welcome to the Golden Chronicles, an experimental series where I drink the midstream of my morning urination in a bid to break down unhelpful taboos and deconstruct the insanity of the modern world. Cheers. Not all in one go, mind. It's quite strong. This morning, or today, or now, in fact, I'd like to talk about urine therapy itself, because that is a pretty big factor in the insanity of the modern world, as far as I can tell. It's something that humans have practiced in different cultures around the world at different times for millennia. It's mentioned in different religious scriptures, if you're a religious type. And there's a lot of scientific logic and reason behind it as well. So the fact that we also means urine. Funny that. Yeah, that's for another time. Yeah, it's an odd one. Where was I? Where were we? Yeah, the modern treatment of urine is really is insane. We just chuck it down the toilet. And I mean, it's the same with poo. Poo should be recycled and used as compost. But urine is, but poo is toxic, right? Let's get that straight. If you go eating your morning poo every morning, I don't know, you might not die, but you probably will end up in hospital, and not really recommended from a health point of view. People want to eat their poo for integrating trauma that they've been through, having been abused in a poo-based way, then that I do understand. I understand it's known as coprophilia, eating poo, and I do understand that as odd as it might sound, as a sort of healing methodology. Not for me, because fortunately I have never been abused and made to eat poo, at least not to my conscious knowledge. So I don't thus have that desire to integrate that, which I think is probably where most coprophilia comes from. Anyhow, getting off track with the poo, back to the wee. So thinking of some just logical arguments for why it might not be completely batshit crazy to drink your piss. We're born in it for a start. So if you think the fetus develops in the womb and then is getting nutrients through the umbilical cord from the mother and then is weeing into its own environment, and the fluid in which you grow becomes more and more urine the longer the fetus develops. And so by the third trimester, I forget the percentage, you can look it up, but it is a very, very high percentage piece. So we come into this world, we develop, we grow, swimming in our own piss. And most of us seem to have turned out all right, so that panned out. So that's one argument. The others are many and various, to be honest. I mean, it's not toxic. It's considered waste by, well, I was going to say by the medical establishment, but by laymen at least. Whereas that's not really accurate. It's not waste, in the sense that it's not toxic and that it's excess, really. It's known medically as plasma ultrafiltrate. The closest thing to a waste product, really, that it has in it is creatinine, which is the byproduct of creatine breakdown from muscles. So if you're using, if your body is breaking down the creatine in your muscles as part of its metabolism, then you will find creatine in the blood, which is then filtered and ends up in your urine. But that's not it's not harmful. That's the only thing, as far as I'm aware, that is not usable by the body. Everything else, largely water. It's like 96% water, I think. But, you know, I think that 6 might be bollocks, but high 90% water. A little spider. Hello, mate. What are you doing? Getting in on the action? Okay. Yeah, so it's mainly water, structured water at that, in that it's been through your system. It's got to know you. There's a lot of harder to scientifically prove, but still very valid evidence about the impacts of structured water. So Dr. Masaru Emoto might ring a bell. He's done experiments where he has basically sending out positive intentions and good energy to water, to all sorts of things, rice, and then seeing how the mold develops, whether it does. I've also done those experiments, or with the rice at least, and came up with similar results. So you are getting mainly you're getting structured water that's been through your system, which has been shown to be very beneficial for human health. Then you're getting, is that his mate, or is he? No, you're just, or she, hello. Right, yeah, well, I guess we'll just leave you to it. He distracted by spiders. Where were we? So structured water, yeah. So it's mainly water. Then urea. Actually, I'm going to have a look on here. Probably going to have to cut this video about, I would imagine, for it to not be very. Come on, urine, water of life. There is a great ebook. Well, it's a book, a great book called The Water of Life, written by John Armstrong, a British chap from the 40s, the 1940s, and I recorded it and turned it into an audiobook, which is available on this, or on YouTube, wherever this ends up. It'll probably be nearby. And let's see, components, contents. Where are you? Okay, creatinine. Yes, here we go. Okay, so it is mainly water. Then the next, water, electrolytes. So a considerable amount of sodium per litre. I think these are per litre measurements. Is that right? Well, okay, in terms of the electrolytes, you have, well, a lot of chlorides, considerable amount of sodium, about half the amount of potassium, calcium, magnesium, all very useful things that we strive to get in our diets and that we're just pissing down the drain. And then, a lot of nitrates, so a lot of nitrogen in there, and also hormones, a lot of hormones, and then trace minerals and other elements that are harder to quantify, perhaps. So the idea that we're pissing all this away down the drain is kind of saddening and insane, really. As I said earlier, it is used, or is mentioned in lots of scriptures. It's mentioned in Hindu scripture, known as the Shivambu Kalpa. It's known as neroli. Urine is in some language. Should really research this a bit better, shouldn't I? And it there's huge amounts of anecdotal evidence for it being good for one's health, and for it having cured all sorts of all sorts of diseases and ailments. I mean, I've been practicing it on and off for the last almost 10 years. And in that time, my practicing of urine therapy has coincided with my healing, basically, of asthma, the final parts. I had childhood asthma, and that has got a lot better. But then I've done other things as well to help heal that. And also sinusitis and hay fever. So they've all gone by the wayside in the time that I've been practicing urine therapy. And yeah, I would ascribe it at least in part to that. There are other more extreme cases of people who have stage 4 cancer and then start practicing urine therapy and get cured. So that is a little more black and white. The Prime Minister of India, whose name eludes me, practiced Indian therapy, practiced urine therapy. Yeah, I happen to think it's actually something that is practiced pretty consistently in the magical community, whatever the magical community is, whether that's Satanists or Illuminati or Wiccans or, witches and wizards and warlocks and whatnot. That's something that I struggle to identify with because I feel like very much an outsider to that community. Not very much, but I'm not really in the fold. So you'll have to ask someone who you know to be a witch or a wizard, Harry, then you'll know. But I do believe it's something that is deliberately kept as a barrier to that. The same with many taboos. I think they're preserved to keep the distinction between the muggles and the magicians. And drinking your pee is one of them, Harry. So go forth and be thirsty. And I think that's about it for today, to be honest. I had plenty more to say. Let's have a look what I've got written down. Urine-based facts. Yeah, how to do it. I mean, there's loads of stuff on the internet. Just look it up, really. But drink the midstream of your morning pee. Doing a urine foot bath is also probably something that's less abhorrent for people who are just kind of getting into the idea of drinking urine wee. Yeah, born on our piss. Melatonin probably contains quite a bit of melatonin, which is good for you, or it's at least a very powerful neurotransmitter. Ancient cultures used urine like crazy, and it's largely been covered up. Yeah, I think that's all for today. I've rambled on far too much, so cheers and drink your own pee.